Welcome to the NanoCap podcast. I'm your host, Will Tjernlund, and I'm excited to have you join me on this journey through the world of NanoCap companies. For the past decade, I've talked to thousands of business owners across various industries. It's been an enlightening experience revealing the vast tapestries of entrepreneurship and innovation that thrives beneath the surface of mainstream media coverage. Each week, I will interview different leaders of NanoCap publicly traded companies to learn about their history, what they do now, and their future. As a reminder, none of this information is financial advice, and it is all for entertainment purposes only. Let's start this week's episode. Hi, everyone. On today's podcast, we have Lew Bender, the founder, chairman, and CEO of Intensity Therapeutics, stock ticker INTS. Intensity Therapeutics is a clinical stage biotech company that's on a mission to help patients live longer and high quality lives by discovering, developing, and commercialize first-in-class cancer drugs and make sure that they minimize the side effects while training the patient's own immune system to fight the cancer. Lew, thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thanks, Will. I'm happy to be in Will's studio.
So, I start basically all my research by going and looking at your LinkedIn, seeing a little bit about your background, where you're from and such. And you have a very impressive academic background from Penn to MIT. So can you tell me a little bit about how just the background of how you went from going to school and then going back to school and why that happened, how it happened, what was the thought behind it, and kind of how it led you to where you are now?
Right. So I come from back in the 1950s, they built developments, and it was when the middle class could afford to buy houses. And my upbringing was in a public school, lower middle class, blue collar area. My dad was a journalist, but we lived with draftsmen and construction workers and machinists and people that ran garages and things like that. And so I didn't go to prep. I didn't go to any real schools. It was a normal blue collar type of neighborhood. Lots of kids mixing up, playing, kind of tough. Wasn't helicopter parenting where I grew up. But I was pretty good in school. And I was a good athlete, and I did a lot of extracurriculars. And I had in high school, I was a fairly decent public speaker, and I won some competitions. And I was good an athlete in two sports, not your normal sports, pole vaulting and gymnastics, but again, I was fairly good at those. And I wanted to go to I always loved math, and I loved chemistry and. Chemical engineering is basically the application mathematically of chemistry, kinetics and things. So I wanted to go to engineering school, and I didn't have any real understanding of where to go. My friends said, well, we're going to apply to MIT. I said, oh, okay, MIT, that sounds good. I'll apply there too. And I go to my guidance counselor, and he says, oh, you'll never get in. No one's ever gotten in from our high school. In the 30 years that the high schools existed, and you're not going to get it. So he said, and a guy named Rob who lived on my street, he applied and he didn't get in, and he was a lot smarter than you. I said, Rob, are you kidding? I'm not going to say his last name. I said, no, he's not that good at math. What are you talking about? He's not even in the higher classes. So anyway, I applied. I got in, me and my two friends, we all got in, the first ones ever, blah, 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 big deal. And it was great. I just loved it. It was just a wonderful environment. Everybody was pretty smart, and it was just fed off on itself. And I did well there. I did track. And
real quick, just to kind of barge in, as you mentioned, you came from just kind of a general working class, normal middle class. How much do you think your two other friends were all math inclined and super excited about education and stuff like that? Do you think if you had those two friends that you still would have thought about MIT at all, or did the three of you put each other on a path together?
Well, look, there was a group of us, and we just hung out. And had I not had them, or I wouldn't even have known about the school, because the school didn't talk about MIT because nobody had ever gotten in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, without them, it probably would not have gone. I would have gone to something else, Rutgers, or not that there's a bad school, Rutgers or RPI, but yeah, I learned about it from them. I was very, sheltered in terms of my knowledge of the world. And I went off to engineering school, and it became, I really enjoyed seeing, Boston and the other places outside of New Jersey that I had never really been to. And then, I did well, and I had a good job, and then I met my now wife, then girlfriend, and she's from Switzerland, and she wanted to go back to Switzerland, so I followed her there, and I got a job in Switzerland. I lived in Switzerland 5 years. And I learned to speak some languages. I learned a lot of cultural things. But then I missed America, to be honest with you. I wanted to understand business a little bit better. I had been setting up businesses over in Switzerland for this company on the materials that I had developed, and I wanted to come back to America and be in business. So I came back. I went to Wharton, and why not throw another $30,000 out the window and get a master's in international studies while you're getting your MBA, just for the heck of it, because it was interesting.
Did those overlap at all, or were those two separate tracks, or how did you end up with international? Because the MBA kind of makes sense as kind of the next step. A lot of people have to do for one reason or another in their career, but the international studies is interesting.
Well, it was set up by the Lauder family to train people in the cultural aspects of international business. You'd have to learn to be fluent in languages. You'd have to live over there, and you'd have to work there in order to get the degree. And if you didn't pass a language test at the end, you didn't get your master's degree, regardless of what your grades were. So you really had to be fluent in the language. So, I was able to get the master's in the international study and being fluent in German and French. And then I came back, and I wanted to work in the United States, and I wanted to be in biotech. So after my MBA, and I was pretty old when I went back for my MBA. I was 9 years out of undergrad, 9 years after my master's at chemical engineering. I did a 5-year master's program at MIT. I doubled up on my sophomore and junior year classes so I could graduate early and get the master's degree in the 5th year. And then when I came back, I got a job in biotech working for a drug delivery company, and I learned how to do drugs, not do drugs, make drugs. Let's put it that way. I learned how to do drugs in my fraternity house, but I did not participate. I observed how to do drugs. And then, look, I got to work in the drug delivery industry. I learned at the company Hemisphere how to develop drugs. We had a great technology on how to move molecules through different tissue. And then I worked in the genetics business. And then I had this idea about using this delivery technology that's now in the product Ribelsis. I helped to create the product Ribelsis while I was at Hemisphere by developing the manufacturing processes and the actual scale-up engineering to make the drug and the pharmaceutics. I became CEO. I became a whole bunch of different jobs, and I learned every aspect of drug development: tox, pharmacology, everything, quality assurance, quality control, clinical development. And then when I started this company, Intensity Therapeutics, I simply had an idea as immunotherapy was coming into play that maybe the problem with immunotherapy is that the tumors are not recognizable, which it is. They aren't. Most of immunotherapy sales are in the most advanced mutagenically cancers. So a melanoma is very mutated because you're exposed to the radiation from the sun. Lung cancer, which is the other big indication for most immunotherapy sales, is because you're breathing in these toxins that are allowing for greater senses of mutation. So the high tumor mutational burden indications are where immunotherapy works well. Where these drugs fail and don't work that well are in really the dense, stromal, hard, fatty tumors like breast cancer, sarcoma, pancreatic cancer. So I thought, well, what if I could use this delivery technology to kill the tumors in a new way? When you look at the way we kill tumors or what we treat cancer is you give chemotherapy all over the body, you give immunotherapy all over the body, local therapies like radiation or ablation, those those are only local. There's no systemic component. So when you have metastatic disease, it's all over the body. You really need a systemic component. Local therapies are not approved for metastatic disease. In fact, there's never been a local therapy except for ours that's presented survival data compared to that's better than, not only comparable, but better than systemic chemotherapy or systemic immunotherapy. And the reason for that is by diffusing these potent cytotoxic agents, which have both killing power and immune activating, which is what our product does. It's a diffusion technology. You inject into the tumor. Now the drug will diffuse throughout the entire tumor. We set the dose not based on your height and weight, but based on the tumor size. We are treating the tumors and sparing the patient all the systemic toxicities that go with current systemic methods like chemotherapy or immunotherapy or targeted therapy. And by doing that, we can get a tumor to die in a new way. And that new way is essentially to die slowly to allow the tumors to become weaker, the cancer cells to become weaker, and in can come the immune cells, start to recognize the cancer is not good, get trained on the cancer, and go back and attack the tumors we don't inject. So we see the ability to kill tumors in the way we do it is actually converting your tumors into a recognizable, attackable site. And so the tumors become like your own personalized vaccine as they die. And you immunize your body against the cancer by converting the cancer into antigen or the recognizable dangerous forms of the disease. And now you can specify to the immune system a much more precise targeting of the cancer. So we kill ourselves, but we attack what we don't inject. It is not necessary to inject every tumor. It's all virtually impossible to inject every tumor. You can't even see every tumor. But by training the immune system on the bulk disease and by debulking 80% or 60% of the tumors, you can get the rest of the smaller tumors to be either battled or disappeared by the immune system. So that was my idea, and I didn't know that our drug was going to be that strong at stimulating an immune response by itself. But when we partnered with the National Cancer Institute back in 2014, Dr. Jay Brzozowski, we did a number of experiments to show that we alone, without immunotherapy, were able to attack the cancer that we didn't inject. And so here we are in phase 3 now with a drug that's going to help, I hope, many people with sarcoma and breast cancer and potentially more cancers after that.
So you mentioned earlier you had like a long career in science, medical, and such, and research. Was this like a light bulb moment that you realized this? Did it take a while for you to kind of figure out that this is something that actually could work? Or was it something that just was intuitive to you that you go, well, of course we should treat them more right at the point with a vaccine type solution opposed to like poisoning the whole body?
Look, so yeah, intratumoral delivery, injecting the drugs right into the tumor has been a long-term goal. So as long as there's been chemotherapy, right? Wouldn't it be better to just inject the tumors? But the problem is, and this is the problem we solved, was that it's not a matter of placing drug into the tumor. It's a matter of dispersing throughout the tumor and penetrating into the cancer cells. And tumors are very dense. They're high pressure. They're fat containing. They don't have a lot of blood vessels. So giving the drugs to large tumors by intravenous infusion is really very ineffective when tumors get to be, like the size of a tennis ball or a golf ball or even a can of soda. You just don't have the blood vessels. And when you're giving it intravenously or orally and you're going all over the body, very little is getting to the tumor. Very little is getting absorbed by the tumor, and very little is getting throughout the tumor when it's systemic. Same thing with intratumoral. Drugs are water. They have to be in water because that's what you need for biological activity. And tumors are fat, dense, and stromal. They've got this keratin. They're solid. They're hard. They're really like a hard rubber ball. So how do you inject water into something like that? Well, the chemistry that we used at Emisphere to make the world's only orally delivered protein, ribelsis, which is oral GLP-1. Everybody knows GLP-1s. There's an oral form called Ribelsis. That's the drug I helped to create while I was at Hemisphere. And I took that technology and I said, what if we can just disperse these potent cytotoxic agents throughout these tumors? Could we kill them? I always thought it might be needed to be working in conjunction with immunotherapy, like Merck's pembrolizumab or Bristol's Opdivo and ipilimumab. But it turned out we didn't need it. We can kill the tumor and get the immune recognition and get the immune activation just with our drug alone. And that wasn't as much an aha moment that I had. It was like, we were seeing that in people and we were seeing that in mice. And then we did the mouse experiments with the National Cancer Institute. We started to see that kind of effect. And then we started doing the drug on our own, in our own clinical studies. We started to see the uninjected tumors going away or uninjected tumors shrinking. And we knew that we were getting a very potent immune response with just our drug in the way that it killed the tumors. And these are the hard ones. Sarcoma is 95% of people are dead when they get metastatic second-line therapy in 3 years. Pancreatic is 9.7 months of median survival. Half the people are dead front line when they get pancreatic cancer. Breast cancer kills, thousands, tens of thousands of women in the metastatic setting. Women who have local therapy, that's very aggressive cancer types like triple negative breast cancer. They go through a brutal regimen of chemotherapy just to try to make sure the cancer is dead at the time of surgery. And only about half, if that, with larger tumors, even have a pathological complete response, which is a dead tumor. When you do have that, when you do have a dead tumor at the time of surgery, we know the cancer will be delayed in its potential recurrence. But with people get to second and third line in the metastatic setting, it's very challenging to keep the people alive because there's almost nothing that stops these very dense stromal tumors like sarcoma, like breast cancer, like pancreatic. Now we have a new weapon. On my website, we say a new weapon. It really is a new way to kill cancer. And we kill cancer by injecting it with this chemistry that allows for the drugs to be saturating the tumor. We dose based on the volume of the tumor. So if you have a tumor this big, a can of soda size, we dose half a can of soda, we will kill that can of soda tumor. And so you have an opportunity to kill every 2 weeks with our phase 3 program. You can kill the doctors can kill as many tumors as possible. And we hope that the patients will live longer because we'll get this immune response even in tumors that are not considered immunologically active, like sarcoma, like breast cancer, like pancreatic cancer. So we have a study in sarcoma in phase 3. We're enrolling. I think the doctors are very enamored with this new approach. It's very different than everything else out there. We have a study at phase 2 in breast cancer, our drug up front, then the chemo versus just the chemo that's given now, the chemo IO. And we hope to increase the percentage of women in that second study with a higher percentage will have a dead tumor at the time of surgery. There's two exciting things, both in the metastatic setting, we're hoping for survival, and in the pre-surgical setting, we're hoping to kill the tumor up front before the surgery in a much more effective way. Metastatic is 610,000 deaths a year, and there's like 2 million surgeries. We are working in both of these opportunities, in the metastatic setting to keep people alive, and in the pre-surgical to make sure that cancer doesn't return. But the beauty of this is not just the outcomes, it's the safety. By keeping the drug in the tumor, the side effects are minimized. So our side effects in either the metastatic setting or the pre-surgical setting is that there's some pain at the injection site for a few days, there's some fatigue, and there's a little bit of nausea or vomiting. All grade 1 or 2, very low grade, very short-lived. So the patients feel good, they feel good for longer, and hopefully we'll keep them alive or we'll kill their cancer so that it doesn't come back. This is the potential of this new approach.
So I have a dumb medical follow-up question as a layman. Is this like a personalized medicine, or is it like one solution that works on all patients, or do you have to take some sort of sample so that it works with this specific person's tumor and their specific immune system?
Yeah, look, it's a little bit of both. First of all, it kills. We've seen it work in multiple different types of cancer because it's simply fat and water. Tumors are fat and water. The drug now is soluble in fat and water, so we just inject it into the tumors, regardless of what kind they are, and it'll disperse and kill them. We get the immune recognition in what are normally considered non-immunogenic tumor types. So from that point of view, it's very, generic in terms of the types of cancers it can work on. However, the dose is personalized. If you and I, Will, were the same height and weight, and you had three tumors, let's say three tumors, a golf ball, a nickel size, a quarter size, you have metastatic disease, and you and I are the same height and weight. And if I had a tennis ball, a can of soda, and a golf ball, and three others, or five others, or 20 other tumors, doesn't matter. With current therapy, you're all going to get the same dose. You're going to get based on your height and weight, which has no correlation with outcome. But we personalize the dosing. We are treating your individual tumors. If you have large number of tumors all over the body, we treat as many as we can. If you have only a few, we treat those. So we're personalizing the dose to your situation. There is a very strong correlation with outcome, whether you live or die in metastatic disease, with the number of metastatic sites you have and the size of the tumors. Bigger tumors all over the body is worse of an outcome than smaller tumors, scattered throughout the body that you can't really see a lot. You're going to live a lot longer with a smaller disease burden than you are with a very large disease burden. So by killing the tumors that we can see, as many of them as we can, we're personalizing the dose. But the killing power is the same, regardless of the type of cancer. But now we're treating based on what we know is a better outcome. By debulking as much as we can, we give you a much better chance. And it's your personal dose for however many tumors you have and whatever sizes they are. So we're personalizing the dosing, but we're non-specific in the type of cancers that we can treat. It's wherever you can get a needle. If you can get a needle to it, you can kill it with our drug, most likely, if it's dosed right.
And then you mentioned earlier, too, that you are all going through your phase 3 trial. If everything goes as planned, what's next? And how does distribution work?
So if we are successful and we show that we can increase survival without the toxicities that are normally associated with current treatments, and we can get approval, in sarcoma, well, then there's a whole range of new tumors that we can look at. So our goal will be to bring this technology to as many different patients around the world as possible. We're doing an international study now in 8 countries in sarcoma. We would love to have approvals in all of those countries and bring this drug to the market as quickly as we can, either by ourselves or with partnerships. And in breast cancer, the same thing. If we can show the pre-surgical application and the metastatic application of our drug, there's a whole host of new opportunities for us to do and to bring this to as many patients in as many types of cancers in both pre-surgical and metastatic as possible. That is a wonderful opportunity for us to help patients around the world. So the goal is to, as quickly as we can, and this is where I'm business neutral. If that's with a partnership, if that's with by ourselves, whatever we need to do to get this to as many patients as possible will be the focus once we demonstrate that it works in either the metastatic or the pre-surgical setting.
And then as I've talked to people in the kind of biotech and medical field, it seems like they always have this second or third idea that they have kind of on the back burner, but they need to focus on their first solution first. Do you have any other, say you found out that phase 3 is going to go great, Pfizer wants to manufacture, distribute it for you. Is there another thing you would like to work on or something that's adjacent to this that you'd like to patent next and then try to distribute to the world?
Well, look, as I said, the number one goal is to help as many patients as possible with as many cancers as possible where this can work. And if somebody's willing to spend the money to do it, I'm happy to let them and help them as best we can to bring it to as many people in parallel as possible. That's going to take a while, even if we do have the resources of Pfizer to do. And so I don't think it's going to be like, okay, I sell the company and I go off to an island, or I try to find the next thing to do. My goal is to figure out how we can deliver this new technology to as many people as possible for as many cancers as possible. And these cancers take years to, prove that you can kill them. You have to set the study up and then run it and then finish it. These are three-year types of programs. We started in July with our first patient. It's going to be another 2 years till we have the data, we think, in the metastatic study. We started just last month in the breast cancer study. It's going to take a year to get the data, and then from there we can do it. I got another 10 years of work in life here of bringing this to the world. And then when I'm, 10 years older than I am now, there's a lot of other things I'd like to do. It's just a matter of, am I still alive? And can I do it? And can I execute on it? But there's lots of ideas. I'd love to bring this to as many patients as possible around the world. And that's going to take a while to do, 5 to 10 years. And then, there's other ideas I have on a lot of other things and how to use this molecular transport technology. But right now, let's focus on getting these 2 studies to work, getting them done, proving that it works, and then the world will come, I hope, at that point, that we've shown this kind of, once it's selling a lot, then I think we'll be able to do everything else that I'd like to do before I maybe sail off to the sunset. Although I don't like boats, so I won't be sailing. I might be driving or flying. But that's in the future, and I think right now I'm focused on getting as many patients helped with this drug as possible over the next 10 years.
Yeah, if you don't mind me asking, do you have some sort of like personal experience with someone in your life having a tumor? Because you seem so laser focused on this problem, and you seem so definite that you know that this is something you want to work on, and that you're ready, like you said, to spend the next 10 years plus if it need be.
Yeah, I mean, that's you have these questions, and these are great questions. So the answer to that is, of course, I have had fraternity brothers of mine die from the pancreatic cancer. My sister got breast cancer. My sister-in-law got breast cancer, local breast cancer. It is a traumatic experience to go through it, to be diagnosed with invasive cancer of these types. Bile duct cancer. I have met the patients in our study. I have met the patients that have done well in our study. Sarcoma patients that were going to be, nothing could stop their cancer. I've met their families. I keep in touch with those people. I've met breast cancer patients that were in our studies. I have put my friends who had metastatic cancer into our studies. I have met and spoken with many of the patients that our drug has helped, and some where we just got there too late. And so I am, laser focused. We have one product. It works really well in a lot of different cancers. We can have second generation products. We are focused, our resources, our people, on what we need to do to get this product through the finish line, to get it approved and into the market. And yes, I am personally, have experienced many of my family and friends that have had, I get my screening on colon cancer every, whatever the doctor says, years to do. And yes, I am very, very motivated by the deaths of my friends and family and the help that we've given to so many people in our studies so far. Laser focused on the patients. Nothing else to me matters. How do we help patients? And how do we get these patients to live healthier, longer lives without the toxicities that are associated and the fear of the therapy or the fear of the disease coming back? If we can do that, if we can solve this, it's called the Emperor of All Maladies cancer by Siddhartha Mukherjee. And he's right. It is a terrifying disease, and it is a horrible death. It's not a pleasant death. Like a heart attack, you drop down, boom, you're done. But this is a torture. Cancer is a torture for people, and we want to end the torture and end the grip of the Emperor of All Maladies and make it a chronic disease that you go and get your injections, you get the cancer killed, you get an immune response, there's no fear, it's going to be routine. I mean, when I was a kid, polio would shut down towns. I don't remember it because Salk and Sabin developed the polio vaccine, but I know the fear that went through neighborhoods. My parents tell me about it, and I know what happened with tuberculosis and things. this is where we are with cancer. And in 20 years, I hope that cancer is the way polio is in terms of what the fear is. I mean, it'll always be there. We're always going to mutate. It's not going to be cured like you can eradicate infectious disease, but we can make it chronic like we've done with AIDS. If we can take this new technology and kill the tumors and stimulate an immune response and continuously develop better and better formulations with our technology, then that will have been, a game changer in a terrible disease. We're in the Middle Ages right now with the way we treat people with cancer. It's, it's poison the entire body in the hopes of treating these bulky tumors. It doesn't make sense. We need to do better. We need to do better by patients, and that's what our goal is.
I don't know if there's any better way to end it than that. I just want to say again, Lewis, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. If the guests would like to hear a little bit more about Intensity Therapeutics, where should I send them?
You can send them to our website, www.intensitytherapeutics.com. My contact information is there. Happy to speak to people. Every time we have a press release, I get, contacted by families of cancer patients and cancer patients themselves if they can be in our studies. I always, try to reach them and help them as best I can by giving them information on where maybe studies can be. We're kind of focused only in sarcoma and breast cancer now. Someday we'll be able to hopefully help them with many, many other cancers, especially, people that, right now are not able to get any real good care in some of the cancers that I hear about. So hopefully someday there will be this drug, and you can direct them to our website. And if they want to reach out to me, they can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And for those of you still listening, please remember to subscribe and review. Thanks.
Thanks, Will.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not provide financial, legal, or any other advice. The information is not investment advice or any offer to buy or sell any securities or to make any investment. The views expressed by the guests are their own, and any reference to third-party products, services, or information does not constitute an endorsement therefor by NanoCap Podcast or its affiliates. The NanoCap Podcast Express disclaims all liability for any individual's use of the information presented in this